Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Hope everybody's there. Hope you all can hear us all nice and good. And I hope we're finding you in good health. Welcome today to the Deptford District Lifebuilders event. It's a mental health seminar, and our strapline is Better Together. You are not alone. And it's really important to remember that when we're talking about things like mental health issues and just general mental health and well-being. As well as spiritual health and our physical health, we've got to remember, we've got a mind as well. So I've got some good guests here. We've got some distinguished guests. They're going to help me discover more about mental health and its awareness. And I'm going to do a quick introduction, quick read, and through some of the intro material I've got here for them. So first on the list is Delroy Grady. Delroy Grady is an RNM level 1, NMC registered. He's got over 20 years of working in mental health and as a practitioner. And he's worked in a number of mental health trusts, currently with the Leicestershire Partnership Trust. And up to more recently was at Nottinghamshire Healthcare Foundation Trust. He previously worked in Mid Staffordshire Healthcare as well as Kirklees Health Authority, primarily worked in community mental health as a clinician, and he's taken roles as a community psychiatric nurse and a senior health practitioner for a number of different community teams, including assertive outreach team and community rehabilitation teams. His responsibilities have been typically included case management, a caseload of service users with varying range of mental health diagnosis and difficulties, care planning, risk assessments, administrative treatment, and signposting to other services, staff management and supervision, student mentoring. Most recent role was a team leader for the mental health facilitator service, which was developing services working in primary care alongside GPs of the primary care health team. So if you catch that, then you know he's not somebody who doesn't know what he's talking about, and definitely knows more than what I'm talking about. So I'm glad I'm going to be talking to him. We've also got Dr. Francis Lebinjo. He is a medical doctor, Christian, and has expertise in consultation addiction psychiatry. And he's in Kent. He's worked in prison sector with Kaleidoscope, and a firm believer that we are, where addiction is concerned, united we stand and divided we fall, or both. Every individual has the potential to make a difference to the service that they are working in and using. There are committed people who want to change lives and are committed, and teams and parties centered individuals can truly transform the way we work. He's featured in a program in Britain's Deadliest Addictions. We can get links to that. There's emerging new challenges, in his words. More addicts are growing older in age, with many over 65. New addicts are being born addicted at birth. At the other end of the scale, we are finding an increasing number of younger people with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, and autism spectrum disorders such as Asperger's, who are growing up to become young adults, and substance misuse. New drugs or legal highs are flooding the market. If we are to reduce harmful behavior and drug-related deaths, we need to promote better engagement and services, better ways of working to help improve the quality of the drug treatment within primary care, but we need common ownership of the agenda and to identify change champions, communicate better, coordinate referrals, and record outcomes and change of working and culture, which is currently too territorial. So these are just some of the words, and some of the words that Dr. Francis Lebinjo had spoke at a Royal College of GPs 12th National Conference of Management of Drug Use in Primary Care that was held in Birmingham over 10 years ago, and he's saying not much has changed. So this is obviously really important that we kind of get to grips with some of the things that's happening and really get an idea of what's going on inside the community. And it's going to affect all of us, our families, friends, ourselves. And so we're going to talk to these guys and we're going to have a conversation. And I've not forgotten, but we also have David Grant. Now, I'm not going to read out a long bio or anything for David, because David, he's going to give his own story. And when he gives his story, that is his intro. And that intro on its own is big enough and it's engaging enough that it's going to say all that you need to know about it. But we will dig deep, and we will dive a little bit deeper, and we'll ask questions. And questions are, you can ask your own questions. So if you want to ask a question, type Q at the beginning of your question, then type your question and put it and just send it in. And there's a team that's behind the scenes, and we're really grateful because it's part of the National Lifebuilders Board, who have been on board with us to do a lot of the promotion and to get this event live onto YouTube and just get the whole setup here. And they're supporting us, and they're there working in the background, looking at the questions, making sure we're live and we're out there. So much thanks to the Lifebuilders National Board. So we're only supposed to be on for an hour and a half, so we can cut. There's going to be a lot of things we can talk about. So good evening, gentlemen, is the first thing I'll say.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, good
evening.
Good to hear you. Good to see you guys. I'm gonna just gonna go into just did I miss anything? Is there anything else that I missed there in that intro? No. Good
man. Good.
Good. So the first thing we've got to do is obviously we're here to talk about, it's a mental health seminar, so we want to talk about mental health, but let's get grounded. Let's make sure we're all just kind of like saying the same thing. And so what I'm going to do is to go to our medical specialists, as it were, first, and I'm going to say, can you first of all give us an outline definition of the types of what we say is a mental health issue, or what do you want to talk about, as in how do we define mental health? Obviously, we all have mental health. As I said, we have physical health, we have spiritual health, but we have mental health, and the issues is what everybody's thinking about sometimes. What is it? How do we define it? Is it a bad day? Is it a bad week? Is it a bad 2 weeks? What's the different types? Although we're not going to cover everything here, I'm going to go over to, let me just pop over to Delroy first and just give us a brief outline of mental health, just so we can, and then I'll go to Dr. Labinjo and see if we can get onto a nice steady plane, so we're all singing from the same hymn sheet. So over to you, Delroy.
Okay, Raymond, thanks for the intro. Yeah, in terms of mental health, the first thing I want to say actually is about mental health and physical health. There's a parity there, basically. You know, they should be treated similarly. I mean, in terms of mental health, in terms of well-being, I would say that good mental health is having a sense of well-being. That's the whole person well-being. I'd also say it's about, you know, having confidence and self-esteem. You know, self-esteem meaning value of your own self, you know, your self-worth. It enables us to enjoy life fully. You know, having good mental health enables you to enjoy life fully, other people's, and not only with your day-to-day life, but about your community, your environment, being able to engage, interact with it. So having good mental health enables you to do all these kind of factors. So that's the kind of initial thing that I would want to say about good mental health. And obviously, if we're not able to achieve some of these things in life, sometimes there are reasons for that, you know, and it could be down to things to do with your well-being, your mood, etc., etc., etc. So as a starter, that's what I'd like to offer at this stage anyway.
Good, thanks for that. Great. So Dr. Labinjo, what's your view?
Yeah, I don't want to use any major classification, but there are major types of mental illness. We all know about depression, and we also know about anxiety. except that when it's a mental illness, it is to such an extent that the person virtually doesn't, it is almost biological, they can't do anything. The ones you probably hear more about is psychosis, which is severe mental illness that affects the mind, affects the insight, and sometimes people hear voices of that type. There is schizophrenia, where some paranoid, they hear voices, see things, and basically thinking becomes wrong. And there's also what's called bipolar affective disorder. In a few decades ago, used to be called manic depressive psychosis, where the person is extremely hypermanic and acting irresponsibly, and apologies, and they have been irresponsibly spending money, high libido, aggressiveness, talkativeness. And the other end of it, they can be so depressed, don't get out of bed for days. And sometimes in the extreme situation, they become bedridden. In between, there are various other types of phobias where somebody is afraid to leave the house, like agoraphobia. Some are afraid of little things, like there are some who have obsessive compulsive disorder that can interfere and cause depression. And there's some other mild ones in between that if it is caught early, it can be dealt with. There's also a group called personality disorder who self-harm and do things out of impulse because they cannot regulate themselves. But whichever kind of illness it is, we must not underestimate the role that each individual on this forum, Lifebuilders, going back to the topic to say everybody can contribute something. And I hope that that is at the least that we can get out of here, because people can be empowered to make a difference to other people's life. One member of this forum will influence a whole family. And that is really where my passion and my interest lie.
Good. Yeah, so that's quite a broad spectrum. And so does it have to be, I think some of what you've both of you previously has mentioned, does that mean it has to be something that's clinical, a long-termish kind of thing, or can it be something that's short-term?
I would say that we can encounter short-term mental health aberrations, as I would say, in response, so our moods can be affected in terms of feelings of being down, low, feeling unhappy. And that's what, and I'm sure Dr. Lubinga would agree with this on me, we can react to situation, reactive. So we can react to loss and feel these emotions. But when we then go more into the psychosis element and more chronic illness, obviously that has more long-lasting effects and more marked on a person's life, in terms of they may require treatments, extensive treatments to a degree, but they're more, as I said, more with people who suffer with psychosis. And obviously there's the impact of life events as well, trauma. People can be traumatized in their early lives, and that can have a significant effect on people's lives going forward, especially, in your developing years as well, from your, adolescence going up beyond that. And like Dr. Lebengo mentioned earlier about personality disorder, sometimes we're hardwired, we would say, from our early state and early life experiences. and we don't realize what might be driving our impulses. And sometimes that's when you are doing counter things, you know, significant life events. I mean, people might fall before of the law, for instance, may commit crime, etc., etc. And it's only at that stage that it might be picked up. There's something fundamental going on with this person. So, as I said in our previous meeting, you know, it's not an exact science as well, you know, because we're all humans and we all experience life in slightly different ways at times. We can see some consistencies with our lives, you know, and certain patterns. But yeah, so in answer to your question, you've got short-term illness, but you've got long-term illness as well, you know. It's they run similar.
Okay. So we've got quite a wide spectrum of what could be going on there at any one point in time for anybody there. So it sounds like it's quite a complex, in some respects, issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I guess let's go in then, and I suppose look at an experience. So I'm going to bring in David, because David's had the experience, and I'm just going to give him a moment while there just to talk us through his own personal experience, because it's one thing, I suppose, listening for you guys, you can expand on it, and because you're dealing with it on a day-to-day basis, and you're treating it, etc. And we'll come back to some of the treatments and looking at how that helps and what we might need to look for and things we might need to watch out for. But let's go and actually have a look at an experience. So I'm just going to hand over to David. And David, yeah, just tell us about your experience, please.
Well, my wife has got psychosis. She does hear voices, and on occasion she has responded to those voices. I'm being transparent here, not trying to hide anything, because I know my experience is not just for me, it's for you guys or anybody out there listening to this. It's for you, to help you, because you may be on the first step of your journey, like I was in 2004, and basically you don't know where to turn. You know, my wife, my beautiful wife, 10 years, got married in 1994, 10 years, I see this played out in front of me of her having a mental episode, and I'm in shock at the time. 2 young children, and I've got my wife behaving in what I can only describe as strange. At the time, I phoned my pastor, and I said, look, these were the very words I said. I said, my wife's gone off her head. She's gone off her head, and she's on the street, and her hands are lifted up. She's dressed to the nines like she's going to convention, and she's telling me the rapture's going to happen today. And she's been warning me, and it's going to happen today. So my pastor told me, look, you need to phone your GP. Phone your GP. GP comes, and the GP is speaking to my wife, asking her certain questions. He's facing me. My wife's back is turned to me, and as he's asking questions, he's just shaking his head like this to indicate to me it's not looking good. He gets in touch with the mental health people, and that's how the mental health people got involved. They put her on some medication, and I can't remember the length of time, but it seemed a quick time, and it was almost like what I call a blip. She was back to how she was before the episode, and I was amazed, just like a blip. Went, wow. But in subsequent weeks after, because she's in the system now, she had a consultant which we'd visit together. The recommendation was that she stay on the medication for a year. My fear, my wife's fear, was drug dependency. if I'd known what I know now, we would have chose a different outcome. But you do hear of drug dependency, and the longer you're on something, you can't come off. And these kind of concerns, we put them to the consultant, but nowadays they listen to the patient, and they subsequently started to wean her off the medication she was on, and things seemed all right for a while. Then she had a relapse, and she's never come back to how she was since, and it's progressively got worse and worse. So much so that she no longer lives in the marital home. I won't divorce my wife, and I put that on camera now. I'm going to stick with my wife. I won't leave her, because my thoughts are, if I abandon my wife, and I've made the vow at God's altar in sickness and in health, and then I go and have my little happy life, and I see my wife, it would be my ex-wife, walking the streets, no shoes, hair uncombed, clothes hanging off her, that would be on my head. So that cannot happen. And that's a decision I've made. Now, that's personal to me. I'm not saying that you should do it if you're in a similar situation, because if something like this is affecting your mental health, then you'd have to make another decision. If it was affecting me in such a way, because remember, I've got 2 children, and if you've got 2 sick parents, the next stage could be social services taking the 2 children off. So I had to be mindful and keep checking myself. And I've got a good support group around me from church and family, but the children could not go into social services. But thank God, my mental health has stayed good. So my children are not in social services, thank God. And now they're not, I can't even call them children. I mean, my son's taller than me. He's going on 20, my daughter's going on 17. So, but at the time, they were very young. And it was a case of managing this situation with my wife, also getting my children to school and back from school, and also holding down a full-time job with all the bills that go around it, going to the consultancy meetings with my wife, the drug reviews and all the rest of it. I tell you what, it's been a massive, long journey. And I do ask God, I say, Lord, why me? I said, Lord, it's been X amount of years. Lord, why? And that's a natural human reaction. Why me? I see other happy couples going on cruises and loving each other, holding hands. And I go, why me? But maybe it's because for this very hour, this YouTube broadcast, that I have gone through what I've gone through so that I can feel your pain. I know what you're going through. And I'm here to say, do not give up. It will get better. Do not give up. Do not give up. I mean, that's my story in brief. I could say a lot more. I mean, it's been since 2004, so a lot of things have happened in that time. But we, as well as the other 2 panelists, we're here to help, to advise, to let you know you're not on your own. Don't feel that you're on your own, and things will be better by God's grace.
Amen.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I've just got a question coming in, and it's relevant, I suppose, to ask it now. And I suppose it's 2 parts. And I'll ask just a little question before I asked it from the guest, from one of our listeners. In 2004, because mental health to me feels like something we've only been talking about for a few years. I don't know initially when I first heard about it or when it kind of really came to my mind, and I accepted there's a thing called mental health, to be honest. So you said 2004.
Yeah.
Was you aware of mental health at the time?
No. I mean, when I was at the altar and I said my vows, and you get to the part where it says for richer, for poorer, I understood the poor a bit because I'm not a man full of money. So I understand the poorer. I was longing for the richer. The sickness and in health bit, I saw as old age sicknesses, as, you know, you're getting older, you're slowing down, you know, things like arthritis and walking stick and just getting stiff, and things that come along because of old age. Never, ever in my wildest dreams would I think that at such an early age, my wife being at an early age would be struck down with mental ill health in the way it is now. There's no way. To be honest, I thought, well, I knew when I met my wife, and you know, I thought, man, I've got a good catch here. And I still love my wife, even with her mental illness. And I went, man, I'm married up here. Whoa. And even guys would compliment me and say, oh, your wife's this, is Chris. And I felt good. Never would have thought that this would have come my way. Never, ever. And that's how it is with mental illness. When a loved one is struck down like this, you would never imagine it. Never in your wildest dreams.
Yeah.
And dealing with it as well, with everything else that you've got to deal with, being a father, mortgage, bills, work, children, and all the rest of it, you know. Yeah, 2004 is a long time.
Yeah. So I suppose the question that were being asked is why did you go to the pastor instead of GP first? Now, I guess
I'll tell you why. Because I wasn't aware of the system.
Yes, exactly.
Just had no idea of that. To get you know, mental health people involved, you know, you have to go through your GP, you know. So I phoned her. That was just a natural reaction to phone her, and she advised me. And that's what you need. You need someone to give you advice, because if I didn't phone her now, what would I do? I would never have thought phone the GP. And if I phone the mental health people, who'd I phone? What do I say? You know, they'd probably say, well, you need to speak to your GP. You know, so I'm just saying, for you guys that hear me now, you know, you don't have to phone your pastor now. You can phone your GP, you know. But at the time, I didn't know what I was doing. Didn't know what to do, where to turn. I needed advice. She was.
Can I just come in on that then, Raymond, just to comment on that? Yeah. I mean, it's heartfelt to hear, obviously, David's story and his circumstances. But what I would kind of want to add to that is, you asked the question, Raymond, earlier about in 2004, maybe we never heard of mental health. Obviously, mental health has been around, but there's a stigma attached to mental health. There always has been for many years. It's better now, but if you went back, say, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago, there was a huge stigma attached to mental health. So people wouldn't necessarily seek the right help in that way, because it was the subject that people didn't talk about, you know. And when in my early intro, where I said, it's about getting that parity between mental health and physical health. People know about diabetes, heart conditions, etc., but they don't have the parity with that in terms of mental well-being. And yet, mental well-being is what makes the whole man, the whole person, psychological, emotional, you know, physical health. You know, these are we need all that to function properly. But historically, and I wouldn't go into the historical context, but historically, mental health is always, it's often called the Cinderella service. I don't know if people are familiar with that term, but it's, you know, it's the service that's at the back. You know, when the people who design local health services, it seems to be the one that struggles to get finance, etc., from through the NHS, etc. But that's probably the starting point, really. And it's difficult because we're from different communities as well, and different communities have their own views with regards to mental health. You know, obviously we're from a African Caribbean community, predominantly, I would imagine, but across other, I mean, I live here in Leicester, which has got a large South Asian community. You know, they don't know the word mental. It's always, they always describe their mental health terms in terms of physical health. You know, I've got a headache, I don't feel well, I feel sick, etc. When something else might be going on, which is more of a psychological thing. So the good thing, and going forward, and has been the better thing for the last maybe 5-10 years, has been that these subjects have been spoken about more often, and hence we're obviously doing a stream at the moment on YouTube to do with mental health, because this last year's pandemic has brought it into question. For everybody's talking about mental health now, so yeah, that's a good thing, you know.
Yeah, fantastic. Just to go back, thank you for that. Just to go back to David.
Yeah,
I suppose one of the obvious questions that comes to my mind, was there any warning signs that you felt you missed? I mean, I don't really know what that would look like, and I can't really say that you did, and I'm just posing it as a question. Was there anything that kind of posed that early on? Oh, looking back, yeah, maybe I should have seen that, or I did see that, or I didn't realize, because obviously we weren't as clued up as we were then, to be obviously. So, did it just was it sudden? Or?
In hindsight, when our first child was born, I was more of a house husband, and my wife took her maternity leave, then went back to work, and I had the responsibility of raising our son. But then when we had our second child, she wasn't at work at the time. I'd gone and found myself a job, and now she was at home with the two children. And so after my daughter was born, a few months after, I'd come from work and she'd be, you know, teary-eyed, saying, "Dee, I can't cope. I can't cope." And I wasn't one of those husbands who kicked off his shoes, put his slippers on, and saw my wife as, you know, she raises children. This was an equal partnership, you know, and I would come in and I would change nappies, I would feed the children, I would take children off her to give her a break. But yet, you know, many days she would come, I'd come back, she said, "Dee, I can't cope." And I would put my arm around her and say, "Look, it's going to be all right. You know, we'll be fine," hoping that we'd get over this stage where the kids are older. She's a lot more better in herself. And that's what I thought. In hindsight, I think to myself, you know, it wasn't a lot of money. Should have taken out a loan and put the children into nursery. That's what I would have done. Knowing what I know now, whether that would have helped, you know, because my wife would have had a proper break. That was the early warning signs. Coming home, her saying she can't cope, and if I could have afforded it, you know, take out a loan, get and put them into nursery. Maybe would that have helped? Maybe not. I don't know. But that's what I would have done.
Yeah. And I suppose that's really valuable in respect of, as you said, you're here to help, and it's a situation whereby until you get into that kind of situation, especially with family and young children, everybody takes it for granted that it's really simple. You see everybody doing it, but nobody really sits down sometimes and say, this is what can happen, or it can be difficult at times, or it's not always as free and easy as you think it is. You hear about, oh yeah, it's tough when you've got kids, but you don't, everybody takes it for granted that, as I say, your wife is always going to be at ease with it, or the husband's going to be at ease with it. And we just got to kind of look for those kind of things. And I suppose, boy, yeah, that's a great eye opener, to be honest. Really, really, thank you for telling that. But I suppose my next question, again for you as well here, David, is it's 2004 and these things are going on. And again, like I said, church wasn't always clued in. How does that work in church? And you said that you got a great support inside church, but was there any stigma in there? Because back in the day, it's kind of like you might expect, if you said that to me, I would have expected some people say, well, they come down and say it's a spiritual issue, or you're not serving God right, or there's some kind of stigma going on in there because these things don't happen in church or whatever. I mean, was there any of that? Did you get any of that? Or was it all really great and the church was just really good for you?
I didn't receive any stigma at all. There was no one who was negative and says, you know, she's brought it on herself or anything like that. There were people that, you know, mentioned, well, you know, it's a spiritual thing. And then there was other Christians saying, well, you know, needs to be on medication. I asked myself, is it a spiritual thing? Or is it a physically thing in her head? I was never against medication, although there were a family very much against taking medication. When it comes to mental ill health, sometimes you're not so much my family members, but her family members, it was a battle against them. You know, they were anti-medication. They were telling her not to take it. They were telling her to tell them that she's taking it when she wasn't. You know, I was seen as the bad guy, you know, wanting to drug her up so that she can go into hospital. So all this, while my wife is being sick and all the other things I've mentioned, I had to deal with her family, not every single family member, but enough of her sisters to think, my life, I love this woman, and you guys, you're making this even harder. And I knew, and I said to myself, when my wife totally is in bits and you guys have moved on and walked away, I'm going to be the one that has to pick up all the pieces. You are advising this and advising that, but it's going to be me that's going to be the one that has to be there to pick up the pieces based on your advice. And I knew that was going to be the case. And that's exactly how it is now. They probably don't remember what they said and how they were going on, but my wife has got worse, and I'm here trying to pick up the pieces from decisions and actions that they have made. They haven't made the system, the situation any easier. They were not backing me at all, one bit.
Wow.
And that made it harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? That's just incredible. And you know what? God bless you for sticking by it. And that's an example of being a true husband. That through thick and thin, that there is what it's all about. You can't really argue with that. And I said, when you tell your story and when we hear from you, that's gonna be it. You don't need no intro. I don't need no intro for that. There's no, do you know what I'm saying? You're saying it all. You're saying it all. And here's a question, and feel free to answer or not to answer because it's come in. And it's about, the question is basically, how did you explain it to the children? Now, I don't know if you want to engage the children or what's happening with the children. That is totally your choice. I don't really want to put any pressure on there for you to explain that. But I'll put it out there and please openly respond as you see fit.
I believe my children, they have told me things, and they will have a story when they get older. They probably will write a book, but certain things they've told me and I went, wow. Like there was an occasion where my daughters, I'm not afraid to say this, you know, because I'm here to help people, and this is real. My daughter's friends came to the door, not the door, so that she could go to school. My wife comes down and she's almost in a nude. Door open. My daughter feels embarrassed. doesn't know what her friends are thinking, even if they don't say anything. But these were the kind of things I had to deal with. There was times, many a times, I'd come home from work and my son or my daughter at the top of the stairs, crying their eyes out, saying, "Mom's just moved my room around. She's swapped this, she swapped that, she this, that." And then I hear my wife saying, "I'm their mother. I can do exactly what I want to do." Now, that's fine when they were young kids, but as they're in senior school and they're developing and they've got their own choices that they're making, you leave them to arrange their room as they see fit. So it was very stressful. And I mean, very stressful for the children while my wife was in the home. But I couldn't throw her out. I could not throw her out. Legally, I couldn't throw her out anyway.
Yeah.
But I couldn't put her out or suggest that she live somewhere else. And to be honest, I didn't know what to do. I could see my children suffering, stressed out. And with a wife that's not well, you start to think, I hope. I said, Lord, if this passes on to my children, this might take me out. Seriously, this might take me out if my children are affected in a way where their mental health goes downhill. But I didn't know what to do. I did not know what to do at all. Faced with that, they're stressed, they're crying. My wife's doing something which I do not agree with. I speak to her, she speaks back, fires one back. I was stuck.
Can imagine.
And there's probably many things they'll tell me when they get older. They'll say, "Look, Dad, this happened, that happened, da-di-da-di-da." They've told me bits, but, my daughter, all she knows is my wife being sick. My son, he was 2.5 years old before she took sick. And I did some videos, in our early marriage when my son was young, and played them. And then I saw my son, he was physically upset and crying. I said, "What's the matter?" He goes, "It's the first time I've seen Mom well." He saw how she was before she was sick on the camcorder. He'd never seen it before. All he knows is a mom that acts strange, who's got mental illness. When he saw the video, he was crying because he'd never seen that before.
Wow.
And then I got emotional, and to be honest, videos like that, because it's been that long, it's almost like hard to remember my wife being anything else now. Obviously I can remember when we was courting and we got married, but this mental ill health has been in our lives that long. It's hard, unless you watch a video, to remember, oh yes, that's her personality, because it robs their beauty and it robs their personality. They're a shell of the person that they used to be. And it's camcorder videos or photographs which remind you of, that is the person that I want back.
Yeah.
That's the person I want back.
Yeah. I really hope that does happen. Honest to God.
Yeah.
That does happen.
Amen.
I'm sure everybody out there is saying the same. Thanks for that. Really.
No problems.
Thank you for sharing that, because it's a real life lived example, something that you're living with. We can take for granted our lives and the problems that we think we have till we hear something like that. And then you realize, boy, you kind of really got to buck up and keep yourself good and be ready for whatever can happen and support your family as best as you can. So yeah, really thanks. God bless you for that, honestly. Yeah. Okay, only because of time reasons, because we're halfway through. I've got to shift it. I could probably spend at least another 20 minutes, half an hour just dealing with that, those kind of questions. I suppose that's we've dealt in that example there. We've looked at how that affects that's affected David and what has happened in the early stages and what's going on. But I suppose we've got to kind of spin it round a little bit. And you're all open for this. How do we recognize for ourselves that we need help? You know what I'm saying? What is it that we've got to think about for ourselves to say, maybe I need a bit of help here? Dr. Lebinjo, we haven't heard from you for a little while. Yes. If you can come in there and start speaking, what are our early warning signs?
Thank you very much. There was a question about 2004. There is no doubt that the evidence has always been there. What led to the early intervention, that if it's detected early, there is a chance of preventing further relapses in future. And all the research going back to that time is why there's early onset, like the LEO project, the Lambert early onset psychosis. Evidence is very clear that if intervention is done early, people actually manage to get jobs and more than likely to live in normal accommodation as against supported living. And they can actually have positive outcomes on mental well-being. So for me, the message is that we must detect it early. I take the point about going to the pastor, but all the research is showing that people go to their pastor or their GP or their imam before they go to mental health. And that's part of the institutional stigma. And we just need to know what to watch out for and recognize we all have subconscious stigma in ourselves. They're unlikely to get a good interview, unlikely to get a job, unlikely to have social contacts they can hang out with, likely to be picked on by their neighbors, etc. But what we can do as individuals is to say, stay in there, talk to the person, how are you getting on? And suicide is also high among men, particularly middle-aged men. So we are not totally powerless where the evidence is, that we must recognize and do something. Even there is scriptural basis for medication, in case any Christian thinks medication means you're not of faith. I just think we need to wise up about it. Medication can reduce the likelihood of another attack. Unfortunately, the person needs to know it's not their fault. It was in their hardwiring. And back to the question, could you have predicted it earlier? Possibly. Possibly it's a defining event like a job loss, a divorce, or a pregnancy breakdown, childbirth, and so on. But bottom line is you are not powerless. Every individual can make a difference to ongoing mental illness.
Sure, good. When we're talking, I think we've just slightly gone down the road of detecting it in other people. That's fine. We'll continue on that, and I'll come back to it slightly. You may have missed the question that I actually asked, and I'll come back to it. So when we're listening to people, or we think we detect it in somebody, what's the things that we need to be possibly looking out for? I'll go over to Delroy. Is it we're just looking for unusual behavior, and is it about us listening non-judgmentally and trying to deal with the person as a person? Because guess what, we're in a men's, we're talking about men here, and there's always the banter. Yeah, man up, don't worry about it, come on, deal with it, just come, let's do this thing, let's do that, get on with it, you know what I'm saying? And all the rest of it.
It's totally about being kind of open and honest about our feelings. If we're talking specifically about men, obviously men forum sort of thing, it is about being totally open and honest, which isn't easy for us. Fundamentally, men do struggle to express themselves in terms of their emotions, because we consider ourselves the masculinity aspect of our lives, we think we're leaders, etc., etc. And society puts that on us as well. You know, we've got to say society does that. But I think being frank in your relationships, it's about building trust with people who you can confide in, you know, to share your innermost, deepest, most, etc. You know, so if you are struggling with your feelings, your emotions, it's about making sure that you're going to the right people, and that can be your friends, that can be your social structure. But obviously, you know, if somebody came to you like, and you, because sometimes we're out of our depth as well, so the receiver doesn't understand, may not have the capability as well to direct, but then you need to support the person to try and enable them to access the right support, you know. So as a friend, you know, and I would, and you probably get from me as I've been speaking this evening, it's humanistic, this is, you know, it's about being a human beings which relate to one another in a positive way. I don't always think it's rocket science and complicated and over medicalized, but, you know, I think at its core, it is about trust, understanding, support, being open, honest about our feelings, will help us to kind of move on that kind of journey. So that's what I, again, want to say at this stage, you know.
So is it about doing a lot of listening in some respects as well? Because if you're here and you're listening to this, and you've obviously got some, I'm guessing you've got some kind of interest in an outcome of your own well-being or your family's well-being, because we've got people here who maybe got married, kids, good friends, or have people who have been through it. Is it about just listening and watching, sometimes just watching out for those, if you pick up on something that's a bit unusual, you sit and watch for a little bit longer, you ask the question, how are you feeling? Do we just try and lightly dig a little bit deeper? And
well, it's about that. It's attentive, well, I call attentive listening. So it's attentive listening. So sometimes somebody might say, how are you? But we're not really expecting the answer. We're not interested in the answer of what the person's given. This is a question. It's a connective question that we're asking, but it's being about genuine in that way. And I would always, as I said, we talk about active listening, attentive listening, and it's demonstrating that in our body language and how we communicate with people, generally speaking. But as I said, I don't always be a negative to the person who might not have the answers for that person, you know, because they haven't got the abilities. You know, I speak to many patients in my job who don't really want to share with their friends because they think that they don't want to be seen as that sad person in the corner who's all their topic of conversation is, all right, I'm not feeling great, I'm worried about this, I'm stressed about that. They don't want to be that person, you see. So and I would always say to them, it is about making sure that you have that support. I mean, David spoke earlier about supportive family, the church, etc. You know, friends. It's because we all have good friends. You know, we all have friends who we can turn to. And as I said, your friends might not have the answers, you know, but they might be able to support you in the direction to get the answers that you're seeking. You know.
Yeah. So where do we go if given that for us that are just the normal regular people that obviously don't work in your industry, and we work in various other industries, whether it's law, legal, teaching, IT, publishing, whatever it is, where do we go to access the help?
Well,
we think somebody needs help, or even ourselves.
There's lots of different avenues actually when you kind of think about it. Fundamentally through the system, and I'll use the word the system, you know, because that's what we're dealing with at times, you know, being directed to your own GP is the way how you access services to start with. But on top of that, there are organizations, there are charitable organizations. We can always self-help ourselves when I think about it, actually, because there's so much information out there. You know, there are charitable organizations that you can approach and will give you advice and will support you on that journey, depending on what the nature of your illness might be at that time. And obviously, what I was saying, what I would say, this is before a formal diagnosis has been given, you know, before a descriptive diagnosis has been given, you know, because in the end, it's going to be somebody like a doctor, a consultant psychiatrist, who will give you that definitive diagnosis and treatment. But before we get to that stage, there are things, because it might not be required. That's what I would say, you know, because basically beyond what we call primary care, which is your GP level of care, you know, then you'll access maybe secondary care, which then you're talking about the community mental health team, the psychiatric outpatients department, you know, but there are processes. But unfortunately, sometimes people, and particularly men, we have to hit that crisis point first before we start accessing them service. So there's a major blow up in somewhere, something has gone off really bad, you know, and then you're accessing the service at that level. But I think we all have a responsibility actually to read, edify ourselves, learn, you know, we've got that ability to learn as well for ourselves. I use the word self-help, that's available as well, you know, to gain more insights to your own mental health and your own well-being. So yeah, but system-wise, and I'll use the word system-wise, you know, it is you'd have to approach your GP first, you know, and that's as an individual, or supporting somebody to do that.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah. What about ourselves? So we've talked a little bit about warning signs for somebody else. What about yourself? Do we normally know that we're under pressure, or do we just take on pressure and it starts to build up and all the anxiety? At what stage do we think, I might need a little bit extra somewhere? That you should be regularly talking to people, and I suppose this kind of combines with how do you keep yourself mentally healthy?
Yeah, I would say as well that thinking in all fairness that sometimes we get the physicals. There are physical things that happen to us as well, which might tell us that something's not quite right, or something might be, you know. So you talk about stress, you know, and fundamentally most mental illnesses, whether it's a minor one or a major one, stress is the source of that. So stress is at the bottom of that, you know. So whether someone may suffer from schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, compulsive disorders, anxiety, depression, you know, stress is a driver for that beneath it all, you know. So if you, for instance, were finding that you weren't sleeping properly, you know, that might be a sign that things aren't not quite right. You know, being able to fulfill your daily routines, whatever them routines might be, maybe becoming a bit apathetic to life, demotivated, withdrawn, socially withdrawn. All these kind of give certain clues that something might be, you know, warrants more investigation or more conversation. You know, somebody who's happy, bubbly, outgoing suddenly is not like that, you know, and there's no kind of obvious reason for that. Again, it may pose the questions for the, you know, friend or someone. But, you know, things like, as I said, like the physical well-being of sleep and lack of sleep, irritability, mood changes, mood swings. These are the things which might warrant more investigation or more conversation.
Okay. So, okay, David, we've given you've been on for a little while. I'll just bring you in briefly. How do you keep yourself regularly on top of it? Because you're living with this daily, so clearly you've got a coping mechanism. So how does that work for you? Just to say, do you have points where you have kind of downtime? Do you think, okay, I need to switch this up and I need to do X, Y, and Z and keep myself, you know what I mean? How does it work for you? I'm going to come to Dr. Labinjo shortly. I know we've had some technical difficulties with you there, and so you've gone offline, but you're back on, I do believe. So we'll come to you soon, David.
I've always been a person that's always kept myself busy. I like doing woodwork, making things, and creating things. But in 2007, I picked up the saxophone and decided I was going to learn how to play the saxophone. And I believe that was a godsend. It came at the right time because music is so, listening to music is a great source of comfort, but also being able to create music. And the saxophone is a beautiful instrument, like most instruments are, like all instruments, I should say, are beautiful. I was able to just keep myself busy. And I also am a keen mountain biker. I like playing chess. I like reading. So I'm always doing something, always busy, like exercising. And as you know, my more learned friends may tell you that exercise is very important, as well as people taking medication. Exercise is very important for those who are physically and mentally okay, but also for those who are not. Physical education does a positive thing within you as a person. So you could say those are my coping mechanisms, just occupied with doing things. Obviously, it's not a replacement for having my wife at my side, but it keeps me busy. And I enjoy these things. I enjoy playing saxophone at church. I like making things out of wood. I want to learn how to weld. I like mountain biking up Cannock Chase Forest. Just active doing things. For someone who hasn't got any hobbies or interests, then it may be a bit more difficult for them, because I suppose all their attentions now are focused on this issue or this problem. If they have got a spouse who isn't well, all they can think about is this person and the situation, and they've got nothing to take their mind off things. So I'd advise someone, find a hobby, find an interest, get engrossed, and it'll make a massive difference in your life. Definitely pick up an instrument, learn to sing. If
you don't sound great, learn.
Just learn something, man.
Practice become perfect. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. Dr. Labinjo, I know you've had some technical difficulties.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. I'm coming to you now. So I know we've had some. I know Delroy mentioned the system, and you've got some views on the system. So if you get into this system, what's your views about? Because we had a question posed earlier, and I don't want to let questions go by. People out there, anybody got a question, please stick your questions in, and we'll try and get them answered. Is there a difference between, for these issues, is there a natural remedy, any kind of natural?
There is always a natural remedy in anything. It depends on how severe and to what extent. Don't forget that there are mentally ill people who will get better with no treatment at all. 1 in 3 people with depression will recover without medication. There is a lot to say about lifestyle. Sleep is an important component of treatment, because it is during sleep that the brain recalibrates and the chemicals that cause psychosis go back to what's normal. And I believe in the spiritual aspect of treatment as well, because research now confirms what all Christians have known, that people with faith appear to have what they call mental resilience, and they recover better. Suicidal rate is also less among people who have a faith belief, whether it's Christianity or any other faith. So you cannot play that out. Unfortunately, the NHS is just getting on to wising up to the fact that you are now allowed to pray with patients. You are allowed to play gospel music to patients. I had a patient who was on restraint with 4 nurses and on the floor kicking out until we started piping some gospel music it calmed for a short while, at least without medication. And we cannot rule out anything or rule in anything. Mindfulness, meditation, all those things, they also work, and there's evidence that they work. When I joined the NHS, acupuncture was laughed at. Now acupuncture is mainstream.
Yeah.
So I don't rule out anything.
Okay. I'm just going to move on quickly for time reasons. We're in the last half an hour, would you believe? Time is just going really, really quickly. Getting some great statements here and some great input. There's so many questions we can ask. And we could go on for such a long time, but time doesn't permit. But again, Dr. Labinjo, what about maybe Delroy come in with this? What do we expect when we get into this, into a mental health situation where somebody maybe it has to be in the hospital or wherever it is? Is it disproportionately Black and Asian and well, ethnic minorities? Are they in there longer? Are we asking the right questions to get the right help? What do we do with that kind of situation? Because obviously there's a little bit of stigma with this with mental health and sometimes doctors amongst ethnic minorities. Is this true? Is this a reality? Dr. Labinjo, I'll go over to you. If you can answer in brief, just because we've got time.
Schizophrenia is overdiagnosed in Black people. There is clear research evidence for that. And possibly getting the wrong end of the treatment. The depots that they are given tend to be the cheaper ones that cost you £5 instead of £2,000. And unfortunately, there's a collusion of silence whereby even Black psychiatrists are not speaking up. Unfortunately, we have to fight it.
Okay, so is there something we should be asking?
Yes.
Or is it just that that's how it is and we can't do anything about it?
No, it's not how it is. We just have to challenge bad attitudes. It's not only white doctors who are doing it. Unfortunately, some of our Black colleagues are doing it as well. Until you raise it to the level of a complaint, then the right thing gets done. And I think we shouldn't be keeping as quiet as we used to.
So sorry to interrupt there, but how would I actually know that if the treatment is good or bad?
Well, this is what forums like this are for. I get a lot of calls in my church that is being put on this depot. I write the questions they should go back and ask. And say, ask him about the side effects. You have people with lockjaw, drooling saliva, when there are better drugs around.
Right. So it's the effect of the drug that we're talking about then?
Yes.
Right.
But then I would add to Dr. I'm not on me. I'd add to Dr. what Dr. Lunga just said in terms of it's about diagnosis as well. If you've got the wrong diagnosis, then you're going to have the wrong treatment, basically. So the diagnosis and the classification area of it is important because everything starts with a diagnosis, and obviously you need your psychiatrist or whoever's made that diagnosis to clearly explain why that is the case, and be in a position to ask the appropriate questions and challenge, because basically as a patient, as a carer with a patient, as such, you will have the right to ask these things as well and to be brought on the journey with the person as well, So it's clear that you should be incorporated into whatever decisions are being made.
Good. What about drug dependency? Should we? I know that was brought up by David early, and obviously it's a concern, and I can understand why. And yes, you would say, yeah, do we just go with it again, or for other drugs? I mean, for any type of drugs? Do we worry about dependency, or do we just go with what's happening, or is there any signs we should look for? Maybe they should come off, or do we keep challenging? They've been on it for 3 months, or they've been on it for 6 months.
I think you should go with it, but you shouldn't be on a medication without drug information leaflet that tells you what it does and how it works. If you're going to take a drug all your life, they need to tell you everything about it so that you know what to watch out for and how long it should be for. It doesn't have to be for life, but usually it has to be for 3 to 12 months. Right.
Okay. That's an interesting, we might come back to that if more questions come in. I want to move to, obviously we're in, and hopefully we're going to be coming out of COVID and lockdown, or we're going to get better at coping with it, should I say, because it's not necessarily going away. Has the situation for mental health and, let's say, suicide or depression, has that gone up significantly from your experiences? Would we expect that to tailor off maybe, or is it roughly the same and it's just being reported on more? Or is this a trend over the last few years? What do you see?
Let me, can I just kind of, in terms of my clinical work, basically, and what I see happening where I work here in Leicester, sure. As I said, in terms of my job, I work in the surgeries as a mental health practitioner, and I have definitely had more referrals to me over this last 6-7 months, and I expect it to increase because the GPs are referring people who need support, need some sort of are struggling with the effects of the lockdown, with the isolation, economic stuff that's happening. People are just finding it more difficult to cope. And I think you're right in what you said there, Raymond. It's about getting better to cope because COVID's not going away. We might have the vaccines, etc., but the actual virus as such, we still have to cope with normal lives. So yeah, in answer to your question, more so, and people are just more, and like I said earlier, people are just more aware, and the narrative has changed in that respect, that people are more inclined to seek support rather than not, because they've been given the door, and the accessibility hopefully is easier, and it's less difficult for people to seek that support,
So does that make you a busier person now, and are you able to get around all these people that you
it means that I've got longer waiting lists, basically. Right. So I think I said this to you guys when we met earlier in the week. It means that people may have to wait longer, and in some way you're trying to help people to employ their own strategies to a certain degree. I mentioned self-help before, so there are tools out there, there are apps out there. Dr. Levengo mentioned things like, mindfulness, etc. Basic things like daily routine structure, sleep hygiene, ensuring that these things do help people to cope in their current situation. Because I often say to patients, despite what's going on for you, life's still going on. You still have your responsibilities. If you're a mother, you still got children to look after. If you're a father, you still got the mortgage to pay. These life's still going on, and it's you need to give people a bit of hope as well, that and the other thing is about signposting as well to organizations that provide some practical help support. One good thing, volunteering can help people as well. Might be surprised I say that, but sometimes you help by helping other people, you help yourself as well at the same time, in the same breath. you know. There's a strange dynamic that works sometimes in that when you turn away from your discomfort and difficulties and direct it towards somebody else, all of a sudden your problems don't seem as great anymore, you know, because you're helping somebody else. So that's just a note.
Fantastic. Dr. Lubinjo, anything to add to that? Dr. Lubinjo?
Yeah.
Anything to add to that, briefly?
I totally agree with everything that's been said, but we just need to widen the thing that more and more people are engaging mental health services and less stigma. For anybody from the age of 15 onwards, we need to watch out for them.
Right. Very good. So yeah, in terms of keeping up our good health, it was mentioned earlier by David there that picking up interests and hobbies is a good way. And I know we had Mental Health Week earlier, I think last month, and they were talking about nature. Is this something you guys would say this is a good way to keep up your own mental health, or is it just finding something from a medical point of view that you just need to engage in? Is it just trying different things? Is it just developing your mind around different scenarios and getting out and around? How does that work out? What's the good things to keep us in a good state and keep us ticking over? Obviously, good family and food and the barbecue and everything else is all can be really good, but sometimes people hide behind those things. But what is the thing that what is it that keeps us in good stead?
Just keep talking.
Keep talking.
I will not be taking up rock climbing. It's not going to happen.
No? Delroy, what do you think?
Well, I equally won't be
rock
taking
climbing.
Rock climbing. No, but
You're talking about Mount Snowdon.
But in terms of your thing about kind of nature, I think as well, just basic things again, like, you know, I always say routine. So have a routine about your day, you know, and if that involves going out for a walk, you know, around the park, that in itself is stimulating. It stimulates you. So when you're out in the park, you smell the trees, the flowers, you hear the birds singing, you see things. It stimulates your mind, you know, it keeps you engaged in life, in what's going on with you, because when people are in deepest despair, depression, your motivations are really low, you know, you're not stimulated enough. And I think, and you feel helpless as well. You feel as though I've got no control over this, but you have some element of control. So somebody who maybe, you know, often females might say they can't be bothered to put their makeup on this morning, you know, they can't be, because that's about your self-esteem, isn't it? It's about how you appear to the outer world, you know. So anything of that nature is enabling somebody.
Yeah.
You know, because in deep depression or deep when you're unhappy, sad, low, anxiety, you're not able to do these natural things. So by encouraging someone, and that's something that we can all do to our relatives, friends, people that we know who might experience that, you know. So these are all good things, to be honest.
Good.
They're good things.
Keep listening, keep talking, keep your routine, keep yourself,
routine,
keep watching your friend,
and sleeping well. You're making sure that you get to bed in time and sleep well, you know, because these things, you know, and things like your appetite as well is an important thing as well. Again, if you've got poor appetite, you know, it can be a sign of something, you know, you know.
One of the things that just watching the time there, we're almost coming towards the end. One of the things that I remember somebody was telling me in a course is listening. When we were talking about earlier, listening to other people and the attentive listening, is that we're taught to write we're taught to speak, we're taught for many years to do all those things that when we go to school, but what we're not taught to do is listen. Is there any advice that you want to give on? Is there any advice about listening? Because that's the thing. If we're not taught to listen, because I don't remember being taught to sit down too often in school and say, just listen. You get things that play and you listen to and listen for this, but it's not a skill that you learn on its own. It's almost like we take it for granted to be able to listen and see difference and hear things. What's your views on that? Either Dr. Levinjo.
Okay. Keep listening.
Yeah. Keep listening. Learn to listen, or do we need to learn?
Sorry?
Do we need to learn better to listen? Is that true?
We need to, and we need to do it actively, and that is shutting out everything else and making proper face-to-face contact with someone, and actually validating what they are saying, and because that itself is therapeutic, that they felt they're being listened to, and now unfortunately we're not good at it, particularly doctors. Just have to listen to the very last sentence, and if possible, if necessary, repeat the last statement the person said, just to confirm that I'm listening to you. We don't do it well enough.
Okay.
Yeah, it's that skill actually, Raymond. It's a skill actually, because it's not only the listening. It's about, to listen, you have to kind of sit back a bit, right? Give over the floor to somebody else, to actively listen. That's what you need to do. So it's not, it's about being patient as well, and demonstrating, that you're attentive and you're interested. And some people just need to get their story out without you interrupting them, actually, So, and as the good doctor said there, it's the only thing I would say in jest with the doctor is that sometimes the doctors have only got a 10-minute appointment, so they've just got to rush through things, unfortunately, Yeah.
Okay. Couple of late questions coming in, but that's good. They're coming in. To what extent should a person pursue talk therapy, or should you be content with medication alone?
Talking therapies. Well, talking therapies are sometimes considered, depending what the level of depression might be, is the first pathway, actually, So it depends really on the severity of the situation is, but talking therapies are the thing that is being encouraged, and you can access, actually, and you can access it fairly easily in terms of services. And again, I only can speak for Leicester here. We've got a talking therapy service here, which can be accessed online initially, get an assessment, and then a decision is made around what's involved. You've probably heard of cognitive behavior therapy, CBT, which is what a talking therapy that can be engaged as well to help people manage their mental health, manage their depression, stresses, anxiety, self-esteem. So again, I would actively encourage it.
Good. Do you take into account as well? I'm going to just fast forward just because of time. Do you take into account families when we're dealing with situations with mental health? What about children? How's that looked after? How do we deal with that?
So families are important as long as the relationships are good. I'll say that. Families are always important as long as the relationships are good, and families can be used as part of the treatment as well. And I would actively kind of promote that.
Yeah.
They're part of the treatment, because it's about But that's about education as well, and understanding the nature of somebody's problems and illness, the diagnosis, etc. You know, families are instrumental. And I think, you know, David's account, and it's a very personal account, obviously, to him and dear to himself, you know, in supporting his wife. You know, he's a carer, basically. He's a carer, and carers need to be looked after as well. So,
yeah.
You know.
Dr. Labinja, what's your view on that with regards to the families?
Families are absolutely important because in the first place, families need to make sense of what's happening to their loved one. Almost invariably, confidence is totally gone. The person coming out of an experience has lost all confidence, possibly has put on a lot of weight, and so on. You just have to say, this happened, it is not your fault, you haven't done anything, and then self-blame comes in. And it's important to instill hope.
Yeah.
The people who commit suicide are the people who see no hope. It's not because they are depressed, but because they don't see a way out.
Yeah. Okay. We're fast running out of time. And I'm sure there may be more questions. I think we've asked all the questions I've got so far. The only other thing I talk about is, do you guys watch football? You're football fans?
Yeah, I watch football.
Any teams, any specific teams?
Liverpool.
Okay. Arsenal. Sorry, Delroy, did you say Arsenal?
No, I didn't say Arsenal. I'm just supporting what David just said.
Okay, well, that's very interesting, because I'm really interested in your views on this, because there's certain teams, and I suppose we could talk about Arsenal, where I'm wondering if that doesn't help your situation on a lighter note, because some fans never seem to smile, and I'm not sure if it's because you may agree or may not disagree. I think you may well agree now. It's possible that these people need to go to a team that has a more positive motto. Maybe Dr. Labinja, maybe we can convert you, because if you go to certain teams, what you'll find is they have a motto like, "You'll never walk alone," and that
exactly
goes really well with the fact that we're saying better together, you are not alone. We're saying you'll never walk alone. So, I mean, I know everybody's, because it's quite hot in here, sorry.
I'm seeing a conspiracy there.
And you know, there's teams that are doing quite well. You know, there's other teams that are there do quite well. Chelsea's getting their thing, so lots of respect to Chelsea, but you know, what can I say? And I don't think it helps that people support teams that are called Red Devils, and
no.
That's at the bottom of the club, you know. But you know,
seeing what you're doing here, man. I've seen what you're doing.
We may start getting trolled on the system here for that, you know. But I gotta say it, yeah. I mean, we just got to get in there on a lighter note there to put that in, because it is quite a heavy subject that we've been dealing with, and you guys have been really great in trying to help us navigate through this system and through what we've been doing. And I hope everybody's been able to take something away. I know that Norman now is on the back end, and he'd really like to come off camera and say a lot now that I've said that, but you know, he's got to stay there on the back end, unfortunately. I mean, the West Ham fans know better. They're blowing bubbles, and their lives are going up and then going down. You just never should that be the team that they should support? Positive mental attitude. What do you think?
What, blowing bubbles?
No, I think you should they take a team that's going to have that positive mental attitude? You know, like when you're 3-0 down at half time and you're European Cup final, but you can still come back and win. That's the kind of team you want to support.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
Keep pushing you forward, you know?
Yeah. It's always in that mantra as well. You'll never walk alone.
You'll never walk alone. You'll never walk alone. And that's excellent. But I'm just going to pour that out there.
I'm so ashamed of you, both of you. You're unashamedly pushing that red team in Merseyside. It's fine.
Unashamedly, sir. Unashamedly.
Okay.
You know, I think you're outnumbered here, and
Yeah, it
I
looks
feel
like
for
it.
you. I'm giving you lots of support. Don't worry, Dr. Labenjo. You never
Dr.
walk alone.
Labengo,
We're always
Dr.
here with you.
Labengo, Dr. Labengo, the only people you need to worry about is Tottenham Hotspurs.
No. We are both forgotten teams now. Don't worry, I'm on therapy for it.
I tell you what, I'll throw in there. I know anybody who's been watching football tonight. I'm really glad that Christian Eriksen's looking more positive. I don't know if anybody's heard, but he collapsed on the field and they had to cancel the game, which was really a sad situation earlier today. I was not going to talk about football had I not found out that he's actually pulled through. So I'm just kind of saying, yeah, good for him.
Thank God for that.
Yeah, definitely. If anybody's looking for anything further, they have put something on National Lifebuilders website. So that is www.lifebuilders.org.uk/mental health. And we've put on some apps there, and we've put on some data on there so that you can go and have a look. I know there's apps out there like that will show you mental health services around you, just in case you're with somebody or with yourself and you need some help and you don't know where to turn. There's apps out there, there's websites out there. I think Dr. Labenjo's given us some questions that we need to be asking. So it's really important that we kind of go to that, taking the knowledge as stated. And I'm going to thank our guests today. They're really such a great time. Thank you, Delroy. Thank you, David. Thank you, Francis, Dr. Francis. Really great that you've kind of given us your time, given us your experiences, given us your input. And obviously, David, for such a personal message.
It
won't go to waste. I know there's got to be somebody out there, even if it's just me, that takes that and says, yes, you know what? That's a driver. That's an inspiration to take that. And it's going to be there. We're going to hopefully get this video still on the website, and maybe you can take it to your churches and your men and have a listen, have a play, develop conversation, take some of the points, and let's just, we do need to grow together. It can't be that as men that we're all doing our own thing. Because if you're just doing your own thing and something happens, how does anybody help you? Got to keep in touch. Got to get past this stigma. Got to get past this. Do you know what I mean? Just we've got to start looking at people for people, especially people who are dealing with, it doesn't even have to be Christian. It doesn't have to be any particular religion. There's nothing wrong. You don't need that specifically to be able to engage with people and to care about people. But we just need to care about people. It's just what we're here for. We weren't put on this earth, as far as I'm concerned, just to be on ourselves and think about our own personal agenda. So let's take something away. I'm going to bring in as well Junior, because Junior's got a few things that he wants to say. So I'm just going to give him a second just to get ready. And I'm going to say thank you to Junior. I'm going to say thank you to David. Thank you to Norman. Thank you to the National Lifebuilders for putting this up and for doing all the promotion and giving us the platform to be able to reach as many people as we have. And I hope it's been very informative. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Junior, and I'm going to say thank you, everybody, again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Raymond. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. Okay, so just a couple of things to go through, and I'll then hand back to Raymond to kind of close off. But I want to say thank you to everybody that has tuned in today, and no doubt there'll be others that will be listening to this because it's going to stay on YouTube for the foreseeable future. Obviously, Raymond's thanked our panelists, and I just want to say thank you to Raymond for facilitating this session so brilliantly. It's been absolutely brilliant. I can't thank you enough for what you've done. This is a first for us as National Lifebuilders. Normally, if you're putting on a session like this, we kind of put it on from a national perspective. This time round, the circumstances came about whereby we were able to work in conjunction with one of our districts, the Deptford district, and it's been an experience, a really positive experience, and I think it's something that we may look at maybe doing with other districts. Really good to be able to work closely with these guys. I'd want to thank also a couple of people that have been working behind the scenes, which you wouldn't have seen. I mean, they can put the cameras on if they want, but they don't need to. So that's Norman Johnson from the Rochester Church and Darren Letman, who've been instrumental not only tonight, but also in the leading up to this particular session this evening. There's Norman. And there's Darren. So yeah, thanks. So we've been busy behind the scenes trying to keep things running on the Zoom and YouTube and all of that. So thank you guys for your support. So just before I hand back to Raymond, there's a couple of things I just want to run by you that are watching, a couple of announcements. So if you can hang with us for another 5 minutes, I'd really appreciate it. I'm going to try and share my screen. Where are we? You know, these things always go wrong. Let's pray it doesn't go wrong today.
Okay.
Right, let's try and get this up on the screen. Hopefully you can see my PowerPoint there. Okay, so first of all, every last Thursday of the month, the National Men have a prayer meeting. It's just for 1 hour, 7:30 till 8:30. And we just want to promote our prayer meeting. This is taking place on Thursday, the 24th of June, 7:30. The theme this month is "To God be the glory." The Zoom details are there on the screen. But by any means, if you forget what the details are, simply go to our website, lifebuilders.org.uk/pray, and you'll find all the details there. Just 1 hour, once a month, last Thursday of the month. Next one's 24th of June. So we look forward to seeing you all on that particular date. Those of you within New Testament Church with God, you will be aware that we have a national convention, which is taking place online from the 23rd to the 25th of July. Now, on Saturday, the 24th of July in the morning, Lifebuilders will be taking a session between 10 and 11:30. We have a brilliant lineup of people that will be kind of joining us and helping us out. Our National Director, Eustace Constance, will be sharing with us. We also have Alex Morgan from New Jerusalem Apostolic Church who will be sharing with us. And no stranger to many of us will be our Reverend John Fisher from Brixton Church, also sharing with us during that session. We'll have a panel discussion looking at the area of power living. What is power living? What does success look like? And we have a great lineup of guests that will be taking part in that session. Bishop Donovan Allen from New Testament Church of God in Northampton. We have Leandre Douglas, former member of New Testament Church of God in Wilson, now with I believe a Baptist church somewhere in London. We have Kari George, who's also from New Jerusalem Apostolic Church, and Terence Channer, who many of you will know the Channer family from beloved Bishop and Alice Channer, who former leaders at the Burton-on-Trent Church. So they'll be kind of helping out on that panel discussion. 10 o'clock Saturday morning, 24th of July. And we also have, for the first time in this format at least, a National Men's Choir who will be ministering to you, albeit virtually, on that morning. So please do join us. We're looking forward to your support. What else do we have? Okay, I'm going to play a short video. It's about 20 seconds. Amen, amen. Right. Darren, you might have to help me out on this. I don't remember what date this is in July.
It's Saturday, the 31st of July. So
31st of July, okay.
A week after the National Convention.
Excellent. Okay, great. So I think it was about 7 year ago, a group of us went to Scotland. We did Ben Nevis. Brilliant experience. This year we are going to do Snowdon, Mount Snowdon in Wales. And if you are interested in joining us on this climb, then please do register your details with us, lifebuilders.org.uk/Snowdon. just leave your details, name, email address, phone number, and somebody will be in touch with you with further details. You're not necessarily committing yourself when you do that, but it's just so we can get details to you so you can have a look at what it entails and whether you'd like to join us. The reason we're doing this is part and parcel of what we're trying to do within our departments in terms of getting our men more healthy, getting out and about, but also to raise money, not only for our department, but also for two other charities. One is the Stroke Association and the other one is the Mark Chambers Foundation. Some of you may be familiar with Mark Chambers, a former member of our board, who sadly passed away a couple of years ago. And, you know, in honor of him and what he worked for, we want to support a charity that he and his wife established some time ago, the Mark Chambers Foundation. So please do visit our website and register if you're interested in joining us on this walk and raising money for these worthy causes. Okay, coming to the end now. We have a podcast. Please do log in and listen to our podcast, www.anchor.fm/Lifebuilders UK. Or if you forget that, just go to our website. You'll be able to locate the podcast through our websites. Some interesting topics covered on there. We're moving into a series of interviews shortly. And I can tell you that our next interview will be with a gentleman, Glenn Easy. We'll be looking at the area of bereavement, men and bereavement. And Glenn Easy lost his daughter, I believe it was about 4 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, very suddenly. And he's going to be sharing his story of not only what happened, but obviously how life has been since then, how he's managed. And we're hopeful that this will be of benefit and helpful to not only the men out there, anybody out there that has suffered bereavement or is going through bereavement and loss at this time. So please do keep your eyes open for that podcast, which should be coming out in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Lastly, just to give you these links for us. So as Raymond mentioned earlier, if you go to our website, lifebuilders.org.uk/mental health, you'll find a lot of links in relation to what we've discussed today. So areas you may be able to get further help and further information. You can find us, Lifebuilders, on Facebook, facebook.com/Lifebuilders, also on Instagram, on Twitter, and on Telegram, as you can see on the links right there. So with that being said, I'm not going to take any more of your time. I'm going to hand back to Raymond and he'll kind of officially close us down for tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Junior. Thank you. Right. We're closing down now. And things I get you guys to say is, I'd say thank you. I believe that the questions, if there's any additional questions not answered, they may well be put and further, and you may well end up seeing them on the website in case we've missed anything. If for whatever reason, trying to get as many in as possible. I hope lots of people will tune in. I'm going to give the guests just a final opportunity in no more than 3 sentences, because we're over time. If there's anything that we missed, just give us 3 sentences. You don't have to, but just give me 3 sentences to say anything that you want, just because we may miss it, or maybe just a final thought that you just want to leave with us. And I'll start with, I'll go from what's on my screen left to right. So on this order, it's going to be Delroy, it's going to be Francis, then it's going to be David. So I'm going to go back to Delroy, and I'm just going to say, just no more than 3 sentences. Just give me a final word, if you could, please.
All right, you put me on the spot there. Yeah, it's been a great evening, and I've enjoyed being part of this. The only thing I would say, Dr. Levengo, you can go on the Snow of Donia walk. That's your rock climbing, that is, yeah. You can go. You can do the rock climbing on that. But seriously, apart, the only kind of an additional thing, David, I reach out to you, and I thank you for sharing your story. It's a brave thing to do. You might not see it as being brave, I'm telling you, brother, it's brave to do what you've done, and just stay focused on your responsibilities, and God will see you through.
Amen.
That's the thing that I need to say.
Thank you, Dr. Francis.
Now, I will sponsor someone to go on Snowdonia, mainly for the charity of Chambers.
Yeah,
Who had he was such a great guy in those days when we used to go from church to church singing. David, you stay strong. I think we are friends, all of us. Please feel free to contact me.
Yes.
And God bless.
Yes.
Brilliant.
My words are for those out there who are in a similar situation to me, whether you're male or female, and your other half has experienced mental ill health. You're not on your own. There are charities out there, as Delroy has said. Don't try and keep this to yourself. You will need others to help you. Many people believe that they want to remain private and they don't want no one to know their business, but that is, I believe, is the wrong attitude to have. We're not an island. We need people, and we need a leg up, and we need people to help us. So glad that I've been part of this this YouTube. I've been praying throughout the week, hoping that I'd be able to get my words out and I'll be able to help someone. And I'm so glad that I have been a part of this. And for you out there, stay strong. Stay strong. Amen.
Thank you. I'm going to put it out there as well. David's got his own videos on YouTube. And so if you want to hear the story again, it's there. And to be honest, it's gosh, yeah. Sometimes you're just gonna you might need a tissue. You might get a bit choked up when you see it, and because it's such heartfelt. Again, yeah, I'm just gonna say, yeah, that's great. Thank you again to Junior and Darren and Norman, Dr. Labinjo and Delroy. And look, Dr. Labinjo, I think you're gonna get a lot of phone calls between you and Norman, because now you're both Arsenal fans. You're going to be probably in both contact, helping each other.
Self-help group.
The rest of us, yeah, it's just going to be good. It's just great. Honestly, thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you everybody for attending. Thank you everybody who supported us. Thanks for all the guys here that's put in all the effort and the time. And David, you did put your words across very, very well, and so did Delroy, and so did Dr. Francis. Thank you very much. And I think there's nothing else to say than sign off. And you know what? Enjoy your evening. Go and speak to somebody and say hello, how are you, and how are you feeling, and get in touch and read and just stick together, and just, you know, just use those words that we started off with here, and just remember, better together. You are not alone. Thank you. Thank you.
Raymond, great moderating.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Great job.
You've done
Great job
great.
hosting, Raymond.
Hold on,
Thank you very much, gents. Thank you. You guys made it easy.
Can I just say thank you also to the district board as well for the
district board. Sorry,
district board for being with us, backing us on this, and also if Bishop Lloyd is on, he's our district bishop for Deptford District. I'd like to also thank him for his support, and all the ministers on the district as well. Thank you for his support, and Reverend Eustace as well. Thank you. That's me. And yes, I still love Arsenal.